All right, well, in the interest of everyone's time, if you just came in, please let us know who you are in the chat. And if you still see the poll up, please go ahead and do the poll. But I believe we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to 2022, everyone. I don't know about you, but I feel like it's the end of January already, and I'm not sure where the year is going. So kind of how it works. But this is our first Missouri Open Door monthly workshop for 2022, for the new year. We have some excitement today in that we are, first of all, I want to introduce you to Angelina Alpert, who you see her name. She is our new executive producer of these, so welcome her. She has sticky notes everywhere, and this is going to go perfectly. So if you're going to go to the next slide, Angelina, that would be great. Uh-oh, our system is broken down already. Here we go. So you only have to listen to me a little bit today. We're going to do just a brief overview of the No Wrong Door project. I'm going to talk to you about a couple of exciting events that are coming up. And then we have as our special guest, Jane St. John, who's going to talk about charting the LifeCourse and goal attainment. And then we have David Baker from Missouri Assistive Technology with us this month. We alternate between he and Scout, so it's exciting to have him here, and we appreciate that. So go ahead, Angelina. So, I didn't do, look at, I put the exciting events before the overview of No Wrong Door. All right, let's talk about exciting events. So since you're here around assistive technology, I just want to make y'all aware that we do have, there's a virtual technology summit coming up, as you can see on those 3 different days in February. Angelina will drop information in there about registration, but just want to make you all aware of it. There's some good speakers that are going to be there. There's also a TechFest vendor in there. So I encourage you guys to look at that, maybe participate in that. I think that will be a pretty cool thing going on, get lots of good information. And then next, we also have, I just found this yesterday, the Association for People Supporting Employment, which I'm sure I got that wrong, APSE Missouri, is having a technology thing here in March. And David, I'm going to pick on you a second because it looks like you were on this down there. Do you want to say anything about that for our group?
I'll be glad to. So this is actually a pretty exciting event. APSE has been around and active both in Missouri and nationally for a lot of years, and their focus is on employment and getting people with disabilities employed. And there's been an emphasis in the last year on the issue of assistive technology or technology in general to enhance employment opportunities for people with disabilities. And so we, Missouri Assistive Technology, and more specifically, I am teaming up with APSE, and then also we have brought in, or APSE's brought in, Linda Batiste from Job Accommodation Network, and we will both be spending between, like 10 and 3 that day, talking through a number of issues related to technology and how to incorporate more assistive technology into the arena of employment to help more people with disabilities become employed.
Great, thank you, thank you. Go ahead, Angelina, to that next slide. I've got Angelina doing a lot of things. So now we're going to talk about basically the Missouri No Wrong Door. So I know a lot of you have been coming to this for quite some time and know that really what we're trying to do with this project is trying to make sure that whatever doors people come into to needing services and supports, they're able to find the right door and able to get good information so they can make decisions around what they need for themselves, for the people they support, across all kinds of age ranges and all kinds of, whether it's aging, which I know there's a lot of you from aging, developmental disabilities from independent living centers, intellectual and developmental disabilities. So we're really here to really build those networks. So as you guys all see, there's different people from different places on here. So we all know what's available out there, and also just to broaden everybody's base in education. So go ahead, Angelina. Angelina, next slide. Here we go. So I won't go into really, I just kind of talked about that, the statewide network. We see our statewide partners there. We want to welcome all you guys here to this. And honestly, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. And we're going to throw this over to Jane St. John and let her talk to you about goal attainment and how we can do that for 2022. Unmute, Jane.
No, I just realized as soon as I started talking, I'm like, good grief, woman. So hello, everybody. I see some familiar names here, and I see some names of people I don't know. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Jane St. John. I'm with the University of Missouri, Kansas City Institute for Human Development, specifically on the Nexus team. My biggest claim to fame is I'm Ben's mom. So if you've seen any kind of a life course presentation, you've probably seen some Ben examples or heard Ben's stories. So that's Ben, and I'm his mom. And then at the Nexus, I do a lot of product development and training. And one of my special interests is supported decision making. And let's see if I can actually advance these slides. Maybe, maybe not. Angelina, did you throw it to me? Because I'm not advancing here. There we go. Okay. So just a quick review of charting the life course. And I mean, it's going to be quick because I'm assuming most of you guys probably know about charting the life course. But for those of you that don't, of course, our core belief is that all people, regardless of age, ability, or anything else, all people have the right to live, love, work, play, learn, and pursue their life aspirations in their communities. That's our true north that we always go back to. It's also a set of principles that helps us with change and transformational change. So not just changing things, changing names of things. It's a set of icons and language, kind of a common, we'd like it to be a common language so that no matter where a family or a person goes, different systems, different organizations, we're all kind of speaking the same language. It's a set of tools. We will tell you over and over, it's not just about the tools, but the tools are pretty cool, and strategies to implement those tools into practice. And then it's a place where people can come together, either people, organizations, systems, to share and to talk about different implementation strategies and different innovations that they're doing and new things that they've tried. So it's a lot of cool things. So again, more about charting the life course. Again, it's, as I said earlier, it's for all people, regardless of any circumstances in their lives. We want people to think about, what are all the different life possibilities and not be limited by what they think other people think is a possibility for them. We want people to share their ideas, their visions, their hopes, their fears, to have high expectations and not just settle for what everybody else thinks you're capable of doing, to be able to navigate and advocate for your vision for the future and to problem solve and plan. Again, that was my super quick overview. Today, we're going to focus in a little bit on two different principles that will apply to goal setting. So that's the trajectory and the integrated support star. So goal attainment, what are we talking about today and why is it so important to talk about it? So we're going to talk about how do we set our goals, how do we get to our goals, how do we achieve them, and how do we keep track as we go? So why is it so important to talk about goal attainment? For those of us that have service plans, we have goals in our service plans every year, but there's never really a clear plan on how to get there, right? So we have a goal, we want to reach that goal in a certain amount of time, but we don't really think about what are the steps that we take, what are the supports we're going to need along the way to really flesh that out and to have that written down and to have kind of a course of action that you want to take to meet those goals. And so we're going to talk about that today. We're going to explore that, how to write those goals, how to get to those goals. So of course, like with everything else, we have a tool for that. So we have our goal attainment tool. It's been around for a while, but I think there's a lot of people that don't know that it exists and probably even fewer people that use it because we haven't really done a good job of explaining it to people or promoting it and understanding what it's about and how to use it. And so that's what I'm going to try to accomplish here today. So thinking about your goal. So I went to the dictionary because that's usually where I start when I'm trying to define something. And what Merriam-Webster dictionary says that a goal is something that you're trying to do or achieve It's the end toward which the effort is directed. Another definition I found online was a goal is the intention of an activity or a plan. If we're doing life course speak, it's what I want for my good life. That can be a goal. So when you're thinking about deciding your goal, you don't want to overcomplicate it. You can keep it very simple. And we'll give some examples here in a minute of what a goal might be. So you want to think about, what's the thing that you want to accomplish? What is it you want to do? Now, we're not going to go past the goal right now. We're going to get to the details as we go along on how we make that happen. But for right now, we're just going to think about, what is the goal? What do we want to accomplish? The way to start thinking about it, a really easy way, is to go to your trajectory. If you haven't done a trajectory for yourself, you should. Whether you have a disability or not, everybody should have a trajectory. You should have, I have multiple trajectories. I have one thinking about my retirement, which is not coming anytime too soon, but a few years down the road, how can I start moving towards that? So I've got goals around retirement. I've got goals around what I want to accomplish in the next year. I've got a trajectory around anything that comes up that I want a problem solver plan around. So looking at the actual trajectory tool, maybe, here we go. There's a couple of different places you can look for things that would go in as a goal. One of the things you can look at is the vision for what you want. So if there's specific things in the vision for what you want that would fit into a goal, grab one of those. Sometimes you look at the vision for what you don't want, because if I know I don't want to end up here, maybe I don't want to end up with some sort of bad health, maybe something that runs in the family. So my goal might be to get healthier so I can avoid getting diabetes, for instance. You can also look at the box where I've got the red arrow in the middle there, the moving forward box. So when you're doing a trajectory, you think about your vision for what you want and what you don't want. You think about your past life experiences, what's worked and what's not worked in the past on moving towards your good life. And then you think about, okay, what do I need to do now? What do I need to do for the next year or 6 months or whatever your time period is that you want to think about with your trajectory? And that's a good place to pull some things out that would be a goal. And I'm going to show you an example of what that looks like in real life. So again, we're back to the goal attainment tool. So once you decide your goal, you're going to write it in the box up there where the red arrow is. So this is my coworker, Candace, and she's given us permission to share a trajectory that she did for healthy living. So this one is very specific to healthy living, which a trajectory, you can do one that's very general, right? Or you can go in and pull out one of our specific trajectories for one of the life domains or one of our key topics that we have trajectories and portfolios for. This particular one is around healthy living. And if you look in her moving forward box, she said that she really needs to take a walk outside every day. And one of the reasons she put that on there is because looking at her vision for healthy living, and I'm pointing like you could see it, but I'm pointing at her vision for healthy living where it says to be happy with her health and knowing that she's doing the best that she can to stay healthy. And she also talks about some things like being overwhelmed or anxiety, and that walking would help with some of those things as well. So she's decided her goal is around being healthy and taking a walk every day. So stating that goal, she says that she'll have more activity during the day and not just sit at her desk all day. So that's very general, that's very broad, and that's kind of how a goal is. It's stating what you want to get to, but it's not digging into the nitty-gritty yet, but we're going to get there. So the question is, how do we know when we get there? What does success look like? And so we're going to learn about defining our success. So when you think about your success, we're actually going to define it for 3 different levels: for what you expect your success to be, and what it looks like if you do better than that, and what it also looks like if you don't quite do as well as you wanted to do, but you're still making some progress. And I'll show you what that looks like on the tool in a minute. And then once we get past that part, then we'll talk about exploring strategies, what strategies are, and what kind of supports we need for success. And then we'll think about, whoops, did I just do that? I swear I didn't touch a thing and it moved. It happens. Okay, that's okay though, because I was ready. So what does it look like? So when you're thinking about meeting your goal, you kind of should have an expectation of what would be a good outcome. And in this section, our expected success is also referred to oftentimes like in systems and that type of thing as an outcome. So what does our outcome look like? And we're going to get really specific here. And we're going to start at the 3 or 4 stars in the middle of the form. And I'm going to show you the form in a minute, so don't panic because you can't see it. And you want to be as specific as you can be. So you're going to say that whatever it is will happen this many times. And it can happen over a period of time. You might say weekly, you might say monthly, you might say in the next year. So you want to define what's going to happen, how many times it's going to happen, and on what kind of a frequency it's going to happen. Come on, go. Okay, so this is the section that we're talking about. So I've blown up that middle section. So you're going to start here in the middle where the red arrow is, and you're going to think about what your expected success looks like for whatever your goal is. So if you were going to say that goal is met, I did a good job, I met it, that's what I expected to do, what does that look like? So for Candace, remember that her goal was to have more activity and not just sit at her desk all day. So she defined success is that she would go for a walk during the day for 10 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week. So as you see there, it has the action, go for a walk, and when during the day for 10 minutes, so how long it would last, and how many times per week, 3 to 4 times per week. So that's very specific. It's a very specific outcome that you can measure. That's an important thing about outcomes. You need to be able to measure them. So those are the parts that you need to be able to actually measure that it's happening. So we're also going to talk about, again, back to the same form, that kind of middle section of the actual tool. We're going to talk about on that top section where the red arrow is, what does it look like if I do even better than my expected success? Now, I know this is probably foreign for a lot of people because just like we practice left to right progression, and we've thrown that out the window with our trajectories because we kind of start on the right and then go back to the left. We're also instead of starting at the top and moving down, we're starting in the middle, right? So in the middle, you've defined your expected success for your goal. You jump up then to what does it look like if I do better than that, right? So you're going to, again, have the same criteria, what you're going to do, how many times you're going to do it, what frequency. And then when you're finished with that, and you could do these in whatever order you want, these two, you're also going to think about, okay, you know, life happens and we're not going to beat ourselves up if we don't do as well as we thought we were going to do. But we also want to make sure that we're claiming some success here, right? So even if you didn't meet your full expected success, what does a kind of a minimum success look like? That I did something, but I didn't quite get to where I wanted to be. Because like I said, it's life, and you know, the best laid plans don't always happen. So we want to make sure that we define all of our levels of success. So for Candace, again, she defined that she would walk for 10 minutes a day, or 10 minutes for 3 to 4 times a week. The exceeds expected success is that she's going to walk for 10 minutes 5 or more times in a week. So that would be really, really good, right? But, you know, if the weather's bad or for whatever reason she can't get out and do as much as she wants to do, she's going to try to walk for 10 minutes 1 to 2 times a week. That would be a minimum of success for her. So as you see now, she has all 3 of her levels of success filled out. So next, we're going to talk about strategies and what a strategy is. So you've chosen your goal, you've defined your success. So now what are the things, the steps we need to take to get there? So we define strategies as ideas or for steps that will get you closer to your goal. So strategy really is just steps or a plan to get to your goal. We also are going to talk about supports. So what are the people, the things, all the different things that you need for support that will help you with your strategies. Now, a big hint here is, we talked about it earlier, we would be considering the star. When you're thinking about your strategies and what supports you need for your strategies, if you have a star filled out, and you should, if you've done a trajectory, you should have a support star. I like to have a star for myself, for Ben, for anybody, that just kind of, I call it like a bank that I can go make withdrawals from. So it's like a baseline of what things are available to me. What are things that I have in my life that I can call on when I need them? So I can go to that star and then I can say, okay, I have this strategy. I'm going to need some support. What are the different things around the star that might be a good support there? Or are there things maybe that I don't already have on my star that I need to work on getting as a support? So again, on your actual tool, we're talking about this section down here at the bottom where the red arrow is pointing to. So what I like to do is list all the strategies first and then go back and think about the supports. You don't have to do it like that. It's just the way I like to do it. You can think of a strategy and then think about what the supports you need there are there. You can also have a start and a target end date. So it's going to depend on your goal as to when your start date is and when your end date might be. You don't have to use that part, but it can be really helpful. So either direction you go, whether you go straight across or whether you go down and then go to the next columns, that's completely up to you. There really are no super big rules around using charting the life course tools. We just like to give you suggestions and then you do what works for you. So for Candace, she came up with several different strategies. So she wants to make sure that her walk is during the day, and she's going to take a 10-minute break during her work time during the day to go for a walk. So that'll get her up from her desk and away from the desk and walking around. So looking across, we're going to go across right now and look at the supports. So since she's working from home where she was at that time, it's really easy to take a break and go for a short walk. But even working at the office, we're in a great neighborhood. You can go for a walk around the neighborhood. If she's at home, her mom's going to help remind her. So that's another support. That's a relationship support. And then she has a start date with an ongoing because she doesn't necessarily want this to end. She wants to keep doing it. She's going to use her Apple Watch to track her steps. Some supports that the Apple Watch provides is it tells her when to stand. I have it on mine too. It's annoying sometimes, but it's helpful. It'll say you need to get up and move around every hour. It tells me. It also keeps track of your daily steps. So if you are having kind of a lazy day and you didn't take your walk, it's going to let you know about it. Hey, you're not quite meeting your goal today. What's going on? That darn Apple Watch talks to you a lot. So that's a great technology thing that you can do. One of her other strategies is making sure she's drinking enough water, especially after her walks. So having a bottle that tracks how much water. She can fill it up at the beginning of the day, or she knows if she fills it up 3 times, she's had enough water. So that'll help her, keep hydrated while she's walking. And then she's going to use her Outlook calendar to estimate to guess which day she's going to go for a walk, knowing that of course that can change, but that calendar will pop up and say, hey, Candace, time to go for a walk. And she can either delay that or she can get up and go do it. So she has several strategies and she has supports that she's thought about from her support star to help support her on all those different strategies. Another nice thing that we have, we kind of call these cheat sheets, but the official name is starter stars. We have starter stars for every domain and for some of our even specific topics like supported decision-making, respite, different things like that. So like with Candace, her stuff was all around healthy living and taking that walk and being healthier. So if she needed some ideas for different types of supports, and even maybe to trigger like what would be a strategy, something might come to her after she reads through these on the star. And so she can look at that starter star to kind of get her started brainstorming about different supports. The other one you see up here is community living. As I said, some of them are more filled out than others, but we have one for every domain and some other topics as well. I have this at the end as well, but there's a link there that once you have the slides, you can just click on that. But there's a whole section on our website that is all about the star. So you look for the integrated support stars section, scroll all the way down, and the support or starter stars at the bottom. So they're really, really helpful. So the last thing we're going to talk about is keeping track of your success. And so the other thing that we do sometimes is we set our goals and we put our strategies down that we're going to do, but then we forget to check in and make sure we're really doing it, right? So we're going to track our success to make sure that you're actually moving, or to actually be able to see if you're moving towards your target or if you're going the wrong way. So for Candace, there's a lot of stuff going on here, but as you're thinking about tracking your success, if you see the kind of light blue boxes that are in line with, you've got defined success, success scale, and then there's some empty blue boxes there at the top of that middle section, you can use those to record when you're checking in. So you might put like a month or an actual date there. You could put like, the week of January 30th is one of your check-in weeks. So it could be weekly, it could be monthly, it could be quarterly. So you can put your check-in dates there, or check-in frequencies. And then like on Candace's first check-in, she put a star, and I just used a star because it was cute on this one, but you can use a check mark, you can use an X, you can color it in, whatever you want to do. You can actually write down, that I walked 2 times this week. So on hers, she didn't walk as many times. So like she walked twice that particular week that she checked in. So she put it in the second box there by the 2 stars. So it was in the minimum, but it was towards the higher end of the minimum that she had set up, the 1 to 2 times per week. The next time that she checked in, she actually did meet her goal, and she walked 3 to 4 times that week. The following week, she did even a little bit better. Maybe she had an extra day in there, or she walked 20 minutes, or, so it's a little bit better. So you can see that she's progressing. And, with anything, we always say the trajectory lines are never straight. Your trajectory might go up and down because, like I said, the weather might be bad. That's one of the other things that you see on here. You have the boxes that are, usually we think of those boxes as our vision box, but in this case, we're using them for what's working and what's not working on this form. So for Candace, things that were working is going for a walk during the day was really helping her with her anxiety. It was helping to keep her calmer. She feels like she can get more things done after a walk. So she's seen some positive outcomes from walking. Some barriers or what's not working. The weather might have been bad. So, when there's snow and ice on the ground, you don't want to go walk outside. It's actually dangerous. So, the weeks that happens, you might see your check marks go down to another level, and that's okay. If you have a really busy work day, or somebody scheduled that darn late Zoom meeting during your walk time, you might not get to walk that particular day. And so you might not get as many walks in that week. So things happen. Again, we forgive ourselves and we move on, right? So that's how we track. Does this make sense to everybody? Does anybody have any questions? All right, I'm going to keep going. I just have a couple more slides to show you. But for sure, if you have questions, either type in the chat or you can open up your mic and ask. I would love to know if anybody's actually used this. Or if you think that you will use it, because like I said, I don't think we've promoted it as well as we could, and a lot of people either don't know about it or don't know how to use it. So we really hope that people will just give it a try. It's not meant to be intimidating. It's just it's another tool for you to help you move towards your goals and to keep yourself moving and to be able to see the progress. And I think for any of us, actually seeing something on paper, in print, or whether you print it or do it by hand or do it on your computer. You actually can see your progress, and you can see that you're doing something. Even if it's not what you expected, you can at least, keep track of the fact that you're trying. And I think that can be very motivating. So Linda says she's seen it, but never gave it much thought. She thinks she likes it. Good. So yeah, try it and let me know how it goes. And, if you guys try these and you're like, oh, there's something that just doesn't work here, or you have an idea that would make it better, we never think that anything's ever final, ever. You can ask Shelly, Julie, anybody. Nothing's ever final. We're never done. We don't always change things right away. We try to have a schedule of when we go back and revisit things. But if there's things that just aren't working, or that you have a better idea than how we did it, let me know, because we will listen to your feedback, and we will, definitely make changes. Heather said that we have the location at the end. There's a link to the page. It's probably on a couple of different pages, but it's on the person-centered page for sure. And for those of you that don't know, sneak peek here, we're actually going to be rolling out a new and improved version of our website around the same time as the showcase. And so we're hoping that things will be a lot more easier to find. We'll have a searchable feature. We want to have less clicks to get to where you're going instead of having to click through a bunch of different things. So hopefully this will be a lot easier to find in a few months when we roll out that new website as well. But I definitely put some links on here so you'll be able to find it now too. This is just another example. This is Izzy. I apologize because all of the ones I've shown today are kind of around exercise and health, but you can do these on anything. I mean, literally, I need to do one on decluttering my house, or cleaning out my closet, or finding new friends, making new friends, or keeping in touch with friends. It can be anything that you need to work on. So just because these focus on health don't think it has to always be about health. It can be whatever the goal might be. So this is Izzy wanting to get more exercise. Again, defining similar to Candace, exercise at least 30 minutes, 4 to 5 times a week. Joining a gym, getting a Fitbit, asking a friend or neighbor to take a walk with her in the evenings. These are all her strategies. Doing Zumba at home with a DVD, and then thinking about the supports that she needs. And of course, we can't not share a goal around Ben. So Ben's usually, he's never really been an overweight kid or guy. He's not a kid anymore. He's 30, almost 32. But a few years ago, we changed his dose on his Adderall. It went down. And so that caused him to gain some weight. And plus he had a staff at that time that, gosh, they ate out a lot and they drank a lot of frou-frou coffee and had some unhealthy habits developing. And so he was getting to where he couldn't get in his clothes anymore, and it was really starting to tick him off. And so we helped him decide that maybe he wanted to lose some weight. And so he decided to try to lose 2 pounds a month for 6 months, so that in a year's time, or less than a year's time, if he actually met his expected success, he would lose 12 pounds. And so, we came up with some interesting strategies, because for Ben, you really have to make it to where he really wants to do it. And so the increased exercise and general activity, we got him a community center membership where he could go and use the exercise equipment, be with other people, because he's very social. He likes to play basketball, and they have a gym there where you can check out a basketball and play basketball. And then we made sure that his PCA was taking him 3 or more times a week. Drinking more water. Ben does not like to drink water. He'd rather drink Pepsi all day. So we tried to get him to drink more water. So he likes camouflage things. So we got him a camouflage Yeti cup that he could take to the gym or on walks. We bought some of those flavorings. I think I have one on my desk here because I use it too. The Mio, where you can add the no calorie drops to your water, and it makes it taste a little better if you get tired of drinking just plain water. So that helped him drink more water. We helped by trying to limit his high sugar and caffeine drinks. So not so much of the Starbucks, but maybe having coffee at home instead. We would put 1 Pepsi a day in the refrigerator so he could get it, rather than having an endless supply where he could just constantly, go get a cold Pepsi all the time. So we had some strategies to try to help him. Healthier lunch options, getting him involved in making his own lunch and his snacks, teaching his PCA to read labels when they shopped, only eating out, once or twice a week instead of every day. And he was able to lose the weight. So it was a really successful, it wasn't always perfect. It went up and down a lot, and I didn't kind of play that all out on this thing, but over a year's time, he lost quite a bit of weight, and he could fit into those jeans again that he really liked that he couldn't fit into. So it works. So here's the links. The top one is to the person-centered page on lifecoursetools.com. If you're not familiar with using the LifeCourse website as it is right now, when you go to the website, hover over library, and when the library drops down, you'll see person-centered pop out to the side, and you just click on that, and it's on that page. You just have to scroll down to where all the tools are, and you'll find the goal attainment tool. And then the same thing, you scroll until you find the drop down for the integrated support star page. And then you scroll all the way down on that until you see this, the starter stars. And there's probably 10 or 12 of them on there. So those are the actual tools. I think that's my last slide. So if anybody has any last questions or comments, I don't see anything in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to David, so he has plenty of time to tell you all the cool tech ideas that he has. So David, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jane. And I was having a whole bunch of thoughts as you were talking there. The first one is, it's always good to just kind of have a framework and think through one's goals and make sure that they're specific and measurable and attainable. And that's a lesson we all should probably think about more often in our lives. But the other thing I was thinking as you were talking, Jane, is that the goal setting strategy is actually something that should probably be more adopted in the world of assistive technology, or technology in general. We're using it with people with disabilities. What do we expect? How would we define success with a piece of assistive technology, and what kinds of strategies and support should we be utilizing to help somebody be able to achieve that success? So there were some great things in there that I think are very applicable to people's personal lives, but even more so to the world of assistive technology. So on the subject of assistive technology this month, it's a new year. And so a new you using assistive technology is kind of the way that I was thinking about this as I was putting together the slides for this presentation. And before I get too far down the road, it's a new year. And even though January is almost over, it's great to have so many of you who have joined us again and continued to be part of this series as we move into 2022. Goal setting, New Year's resolutions, staples of American life. And we've probably all done them. We wanted to lose weight. We wanted to eat more healthy. We wanted to exercise more, as we saw in the examples there. And for people with disabilities, many of them have the same types of goals on a yearly basis. But one of the things that sometimes separates their ability to be able to achieve some of the goals is how are they going to use assistive technology? Can that be an aid that can help them more easily achieve some of the things that they want? So those are kind of some of the things we're going to look at here as we start to go through the slides. One of the things that we try to do, and I don't have a slide for this, but one of the things that we've been trying to do is we've done this series of workshops is sort of have a concept that we introduce everyone to, a concept from the world of assistive technology. And some of you who have been on these may recall some of them. Early on we had a little bit of a discussion about how we categorize assistive technology into low tech, mid tech, and high tech. And in this series of slides, kind of the concept that I thought would be good to introduce at this point in time is what I refer to, and this isn't something you're going to see a lot of, but it's something I'm beginning to see a little bit more of in the world of assistive technology, and that's sort of subdividing technology in general around assistive technology. And to explain what I mean, way back in the dark ages, whenever we talked about assistive technology or technology for people with disabilities, we were talking about standalone devices that were simply designed to help a person with a disability be able to do this or to do that or whatever. And then over the years, we began to see what I refer to as hybrid assistive technology, which are devices that are out there that are designed and sold in the general marketplace, sort of for the mainstream world, but they are built with all sorts of features that are useful for people with disabilities. So I often refer to these, as do other people, as hybrid devices. And the great example of this would be the iPad. I can go out as a person without a disability and buy an iPad, take it out of the box and do what I want. As a person with a disability, because they've built accessibility features into the iPad, I can open it up just as quickly as a person without a disability, set some features in there and be able to use it equally. So we have standalone devices, we have hybrid devices, and increasingly, because companies have gotten smarter and realized that people with disabilities are a significant audience out there for purchasing, we are just plain seeing a lot of mainstream technology that may not have ever been designed with people with disabilities in mind. However, it has great applications for people with disabilities. And the example I often cite here are things like the Alexa or the Google Home or some of those types of devices that the minute they came on the market, a lot of people thought they were pretty cool, but a lot of people with disabilities were like, whoa, wait, I can see all sorts of ways that can be used to make my life easier. So the concept, again, is just kind of this sort of subdividing of the whole world of technology into standalone assistive devices, into devices that I refer to as hybrid, and then mainstream technologies that we can use for people with disabilities to help them achieve various types of activities that they want to. Okay, so sort of digging a little more deeply in here, and some of these devices that we're going to talk about, some of you may recognize them from previous presentations that we've done. But we're going to talk about some devices that sort of fall into what I would consider to be some of the more common goals that people set on a yearly basis. And better management of stress is definitely something that a lot of people have as a goal. You know, I want to relax more. I don't want to feel as anxious. I don't want, my stomach to be upset, like, because I've been so stressed out about things. And this is probably even more of a goal now in our current situation as we've continued to work our way through the pandemic. And that's been an extremely stressful event for a lot of folks. And there have been over the years a lot of really kind of nice, simple devices, some of them specifically for the disabled, for people with disabilities, some of them, most of them more for the mainstream market, that have been shown to be effective and useful for helping people manage stress. And a lot of these are going to be app-based types of options, and they range from free to ones that have subscriptions that come with them. And we see such things out there as relaxation and meditation apps, white noise apps and white noise machines. There's apps out there that play music that can help with sleep. And there's therapeutic lights, and then fidget toys. For some reason, fidget toys have kind of bounced back in as a way of helping people manage stress. So I've got a couple of options that are illustrated there, and starting sort of at 12 o'clock, the one that's in the blue box that says BNR, that is an app called Breathe to Relax. And if I remember correctly, it was actually developed originally by the Veterans Administration, but don't quote that as gospel. And what it does is it helps somebody learn, it teaches individuals a skill known as diaphragmatic breathing, if I remember correctly. And that is a common relaxation skill that's used in practices like mindfulness or cognitive behavioral therapy. And it also has been shown to be very effective. The strategy of breathing in a certain manner has been shown to be very effective for helping people who have PTSD or have issues with anxiety and some of those common situations that people need to kind of work their way through. This is a free app, and it's the kind of thing that a person can do whenever they begin to feel stressed, and they can do it independently. So, let's use the example, somebody, they are getting a little bit amped up about something as the day's going on. They could just step aside for a second, use the Breathe to Relax app, and kind of get recentered on what's their priority and how they need to go forward. There's an increasing amount of information out there that shows that using white noise apps, and which you could use on your iPhone or your iPad or even on your desktop computer. And there are also that same concept available in standalone machines, that this utilization of a ambient sound is proven to be effective, again, for things like helping people stay calm, for managing stress in general, for reducing anxiety, for blocking out background noises if that's something that causes people to lose their focus, and then sleep. Sleep is critically important. And there are, again, several apps and some standalone devices out there that do a whole bunch of various things, from white noise that is designed especially for sleep purposes, to various kinds of music and sounds that have shown to be helpful in helping somebody be able to sleep. There are also an increasing number of therapeutic lights that are available there. And the one that is illustrated there in the bottom right-hand side is one called Happy Light, and it's by a company called Lucent. And they have a number of these that come in different sizes. This particular one is a portable one. And there are folks that have issues with seasonal adjusted disorder and some other types of negative health reactions that are caused by shorter days or colder temperatures or those types of things. And again, so we have some really nice options out there that are relatively low cost. They're portable. There's actually a pretty good evidence out there to support the effectiveness and the efficiency of these types of tools. And fidget toys, I think it was a few episodes ago of this webinar series that Scout might have shared a do-it-yourself fidget toy. And I have to confess, when my kids were younger and fidget toys came out, I couldn't quite figure out what the upside of these is. However, over the years, and I'm doing it right now, I actually have a fidget toy, which I am moving through my fingers to help me stay focused as I give this presentation and not get distracted by something around my environment. So, some of these things I swear by because I use them as well. So if we move on to the next slide, we want to talk a little about assistive technology for getting healthy. And this may be new to some of you. Some of you may have remembered that we'd done a prior episode in this series that was just on assistive technology around this theme. But this is, again, a common goal that people have every year when it comes to setting goals for the year ahead. And we have increasingly seen the evolution of devices for helping people monitor their vital signs or to remind them. When Jane was talking in the example of Candace, Candace is using her Apple Watch to help her measure steps and to be able to remind her that it's time for her to get up. And so these exercise trackers have proven to be great for a lot of people. They can become a little bit addictive in and of themselves, but they can be very useful tools, not only for the general population, but for people with disabilities to set goals around getting out and taking more steps every day, or getting up and walking around, or just other types of things that maybe they're more motivated if they can actually see their progress by seeing their steps measured in a daily basis. And I know some of these devices like the Apple Watch can be a little bit expensive. It might be a little bit cumbersome for some individuals, might be beyond their budget, one thing and another. But there are a number of these devices that are relatively low cost. The Cobalt is an example of one. It actually has some features in it that it's kind of a little more designed for people with disabilities because it has some features, some access features, some universal design features in it, if I remember correctly, for that population. But it's less, there are some that are less expensive and they can just simply function as a simple tracker that can help somebody if just getting a certain number of steps is their goal in a day. Then maybe one of the simpler, less expensive ones is something to consider. Scales have gotten really, really smart. We can pair our scales up with apps, and a lot of times the apps should be usable if you're somebody that uses VoiceOver or some of the other built-in features that we find in some of the tablets and smartphones in this day and age. But again, it's a great way because we can pair up a scale to measure our weight and have it recorded automatically in an app. That's a motivating factor because we can see the progress we're making, or where we might need to step up our game a little bit. These scales have actually gotten better over the years because they're doing more than just measuring weight. They're measuring body mass index, some of those types of things. And then a lot of folks already have pre-existing conditions that they want to make sure don't get any worse. And we've seen an explosion of items that can help us measure and track our vital signs so that we have good information when we go to our doctor, and we can kind of report to the doctor, this is what's been going on, and we can share the information that might have been stored in the device or stored into an app with our doctor so that we can make sound decisions about our health care. And in the upper part of the screen on the right-hand side, we have examples of two of those. The one that's on that the person is wearing on their wrist is called the HealthSmart Wrist Digital Blood Pressure Monitor. And so it's easy to read. It actually has pretty good size, large print, and it so provides good visual feedback. And it can actually be used by a couple of people. It can sort of subdivide and keep track of the two people's individual information. But it does things like, besides just measuring your blood pressure, it can also detect irregular heartbeats, and it's bilingual. It can be used. It can provide you with information both in English and in Spanish. And then on the right-hand side is the AutoCalc, which is a talking glucose monitor, and so it provides audible prompts and has easy to utilize tactile buttons, and it's relatively inexpensive at about $50. So lots of good off-the-shelf mainstream technologies, and then some of the hybrid devices where they're used by folks who don't have disabilities, but they have features built into them that are useful for individuals with disabilities that can help folks set and obtain getting healthy in 2022 as a goal. So, Angelina, if we want to move on to the next slide. Cooking, healthy. I think a lot of us always want to change our diet in the course of a year. And a lot of us set a goal of maybe spending more time preparing family meals or eating less prepackaged materials and spending more time being able to make things and slow the pace of life down and share them with family and friends. And there has been an explosion. Well, actually, it's kind of funny. What comes around goes around. 20 years ago, when I was getting into the world of assistive technology, there were a fair number of devices out there that were very useful for helping people with a wide variety of disabilities be able to prepare their own food. And we have seen this sort of loop back over the years, and sort of a renewed emphasis on this, but also some really nice products that are coming out and being updated. So it doesn't really matter what the task is in the kitchen. I can almost assure you that there is going to be a adapted device or a mainstream device that has been adapted in a way that can help me do whatever task it is that might be a barrier when I'm preparing food at my home. So we have adapted knives and utensils. We have stabilizing cutting boards, cordless can openers. We've got guides to help us cut things if they need to be at a certain length or we want to cut them into a certain number. There's lots of different adaptive food preparation bowls and spoons and spatulas and all those types of things. And there also are, so that people can do things more independently, some really nice picture-based cookbooks. They can be the traditional print text, or there are a number of these that are showing up online where they are done in a way that involves color coding and other strategies that help somebody be able to more independently do things and follow along and have greater success when it's all said and done. So the things that I have illustrated here on the side, on the right-hand side of the slide, include that's a below the pie and below the hand reaching in there. That's a guard that I can put on a burner so that, or a rack inside a stove, so that I don't inadvertently burn myself as I'm taking stuff in and out. And then over on the right-hand side is a can opener. That's a one-handed can opener. So if I have some issues with stability or lifting or only use of one hand, I can independently open cans. And there's a version of this for bottles, if I remember correctly. And then that is an adapted cutting board down there below, where I can basically impale something and have it held steady as I'm cutting it. I can either impale it there on those spikes, or I can bump it up against the bumper there so that it's held steady so that I can do what I need to do as I'm using the cutting board and do it independently. Jane, you have something like that on your oven. So very good. There's a few thousand of these things floating around my house as well. We get stuff here sometimes at work and I'm like, oh, I got to get one of those for home, which makes my wife wonder, do I ever stop working? Do I have to constantly play with these things? And then, yeah, okay. So a couple of questions that came in. Where do you get them? That's always a tough question with but it's an easy to answer question with some of these adapted health aids or cooking aids. And what I mean by that is increasingly we're seeing these things in places like Walmart and Bed Bath and Beyond, but there are specialty companies like Maxi Aids or LS&S that have those types of have these types of items, and certainly reach out to me and I can point people in specific directions if they have specific types of questions on items. So I'm kind of I'm talking a little more on this one than I had planned on it, and to stay on time. Angelina, if we move on to the next one, then I'll cut through this real quickly. But you know, getting out, being part of the environment, being actively engaged in my community or with family and friends are key things that a lot of people want to do every year. And I just have to say really quickly that some of the things that are going on out there that are exciting, that don't necessarily have to do with technology, are the inclusiveness that museums and other cultural institutions have begun to engage in. Here in the Kansas City area, the Nelson Atkins Museum has done all sorts of things to be more inclusive of an environment for people with disabilities. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you're a reader, the Wolfner Talking Books here out of Jefferson City that serves people across the state of Missouri who need books in alternative formats is a great resource, as is your public library. They've done a lot to increase their accessibility. And then we've got things like adapted games and adapted gardening devices that are out there that can help people enjoy hobbies and stay socially engaged with family and friends. So the next slide is getting assistive technology for getting organized. And I was kind of snooping around here not too long ago. You know, there's lots of great systems out there for organizing items, but I really hadn't seen a whole lot of things that I thought were really great for people who had mobility impairments, maybe use a wheelchair. And I came across this modular system, and unfortunately I'm blanking on what the name of it is, but I loved the fact that it was it can be customized at a height or level, however I need it, so that I can have stuff right at my reach if I'm using a wheelchair or if I have some other mobility issues that impact my ability to stay organized. I can keep things really handy. Sock tuckers, which are an oldie but a goodie, but they're useful for organizing a variety of things, including your socks as you're washing them. The labeling apps, and then the pen friend, which can help me keep track of things and remind me what they are as I you know, a zillion different ways the pen friend can be used, and then note-taking apps, which we've touched on before, that can help me remember information so I can recall it later. And then if we move on to the next slide, just really quick, this is something that Scout always is pushing. And matter of fact, he's down at a big national AT conference doing some of this right now. And this is Hack Your Own AT. You know, there are lots of great devices out there, but maybe it's just a little off here or a little off there. And I encourage people, if you want to set a goal in the world of assistive technology for 2022, to learn a little more about do-it-yourself assistive technology and how you can take simple things like PVC tubing or foam tubing and those types of things and use them to create devices that are specific to your needs. The iPad stand over there on the left-hand side is a great example. There are lots of iPad stands out there. They can be kind of expensive, but you know, maybe I just need it tilted a little bit more than any of those provide. So if I make my own using some PVC, I save some money and I get something that specifically matches my needs. So that's a real quick little introduction to some devices that can be really effective for some of the more common goals that people set in a new year. So anything anybody needs, certainly follow up with me or reach out to Angelina and we can follow up with you. You know, using assistive technology not only helps an individual be safer and more independent, it helps the caregiver stay in the game as well. So that's a whole nother potential webinar we could do, just AT on again for individuals who are caregivers. So that is all I had. I don't know, Angelina or Jane, if you had anything more. Oh,
Yeah, I will end this here. Thank you, David. That was good. Just a couple things. Our next workshop is February 23rd. There's a closing poll if you could do that. We're going to be talking about AT to enjoy the outdoors next time. Jane had thrown a slide up after her presentation. Our Turn in the Life course annual showcase is going to be taking place April 13th and 14th in Kansas City, Missouri. So we'll be sending out a follow-up email to all of you, as I said in the chat, and we will include information about our showcase. We'd love for you guys to come. It is the best couple days of the year. So if you guys would just do your poll, and we really appreciate you coming, and please plan to join us next week. And David and Jane, thank you so much. Great presentation. Angelina, good executive producing. You guys have a great week.